Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to talk about Bad Habit Beauty. However, this time we're not going to be talking about an eyeshadow palette that they've recently duped. We're actually going to be talking about a brand new product from Bad Habit, and that is their brushes. So if that's something you're interested in watching, then you're in the right place. We are about to get into it.
I'm a lone wolf. I'm a lone wolf. I'm a lone wolf. I'm a lone wolf. I'm a lone wolf.
All right, so Bad Habit Beauty. You guys know I love Bad Habit, and of course you guys know that I love their dupe palettes. I think they do them well. Now, recently Bad Habit has decided to have their own website. Previously, they were selling their products through like authorized retailers. So retailers like the Shop Hush app would sell Bad Habit products, and you could purchase their products through that retailer, but now they actually have their own website set up. So all of the Bad Habit products are actually on their own website at badhabitbeauty.com. Now, they've had a couple of releases on this website, and honestly, they've gone really, really well. If anything can be taken from this launch of this website, I hope the rest of the beauty industry is paying attention to how the distribution and shipping is being handled at Bad Habit Beauty. Honestly, from the time that you place your order on this website, a couple of hours later, you get a confirmation email. A couple of hours after that, you actually get your tracking number, and my products have shown up on my doorstep within a day or two, and you're only paying like $4 for shipping, and you get 2-day, sometimes even overnight shipping, and that is insane, and I wish everybody would do that. So whoever it is that they're using for distribution and shipping, kudos to them. They've done an amazing job. I absolutely have had a wonderful experience every time I've ordered off of the new website. So that is absolutely recommended to you guys. Now, today, we are actually not here to talk about eyeshadow palettes from Bad Habit Beauty. We're actually here to talk about brushes. Now, when I heard that Bad Habit was coming up with their own brushes, I actually got a little nervous because Bad Habit Beauty is known for driving down prices. So they'll take a $130 Natasha Denona palette and they will basically recreate that palette so that you can get that palette for like $16, and it's completely affordable, and it's themed the same way the Natasha Denona palette is. So if you're ever out there and you look at a palette and you think, oh my gosh, I would love to have a palette like that, but you can't afford it, then check out Bad Habit, because you can actually get a palette like that, except it'll be much more reasonable, and the quality is really, really good. So let's hope they were able to keep that theme going with their brush set. Now, when it comes to brushes and driving down the price, that means more likely than not, they're probably going to go with synthetic bristles as opposed to a natural hairbrush. Now, a lot of people actually prefer that because then that means that the brushes are cruelty-free. So more than likely, they'll have a synthetic brush hair. And then also when it comes to brushes, there's a couple of different things to keep in mind. Ferrules are not cheap. To get a good ferrule on a brush, you know, can be a little bit of a pain in the butt. And the handle itself, oftentimes high quality handles are weighted a little bit so that they feel nice and luxurious in the hand. Sometimes you'll even get some customization on handles so that your fingers will fit inside of certain grooves. You have certain handles that, like this one, are a little fatter towards the top, and then they get really, really skinny towards the end. A lot of artists really like to hold the very end of a brush when they're working because it keeps their touch very light and their blends very smooth. A lot of handles are shaped to be very ergonomic, and you know, you want a little bit of weight to it as well. And oftentimes the cheaper the brush, the lighter the brush. So a couple of concerns going into this brush set that I'm a little worried about when it comes to Bad Habit and actually pulling off a quality brush set. Now, when it comes to the price tag, so for example, we just did a giveaway with the Jaclyn Hill Morphe Master Eye Collection that retailed for $42 for 8 brushes. And you know, Morphe is not like a Wayne Goss brush. Morphe is more on the more affordable side when it comes to brushes, and that 8 brush eyeshadow collection was $42. Now the Bad Habit collection is retailing for $24, and so far the only brushes they've come out with are eye brushes. So this is an eye brush collection. They haven't come out with any face brushes yet. Now on the brush collection from Bad Habit Beauty, you not only can purchase the collection all together for $24, but you can also purchase these brushes individually, and they range anywhere from $4 to $5 a piece. So each brush is still available on its own. You can get it individually if you don't want to get the entire collection, but at $4 to $5 a piece, you might as well just get all 8 for $24. You're going to end up saving quite a bit of money, unless you just look on there and you say, you know what, I just want to try one, see what the quality is like, and then make a decision. You could definitely do that as well. So let's talk about these brushes. So first, let's talk about some competitors that they have when it comes to this particular price point. So there are people out there that are making inexpensive brushes, and they're actually not doing a bad job at it. Real Techniques comes to mind. Some of their brushes can be quite inexpensive. I don't think I've ever seen any of them around $4 or $5 a piece, but you can get like a little set of like 2 or 3 brushes for like $20 through Real Techniques. And Real Techniques is a synthetic brush head, and they're not bad brushes. They're not the best, but they're not too bad. Wet n Wild also has a brush set out there. I am not a fan of the Wet n Wild brushes. Those are kind of those pink handled brushes that have the pink and white bristles. I don't like those very much. Now the newer ones that they've come out with, for example, the ones that they released with the Fire Dragon, Ice Dragon collection, there was 2 brushes in that collection. One was a highlighting brush and one was a bronzer brush. Those 2 are a little bit more high quality, and those 2 were actually really nice. So there are some people out there that are doing inexpensive brushes and not doing a bad job at it. So Bad Habit might have a little competition in this arena. So initially, when you look at the brush collection online, all you see is just the 8 brushes shown to you. That's all you see. So I expected to get a little bundle of 8 brushes, each of them probably wrapped individually in plastic. But I was surprised that when they actually showed up, they showed up in a nice little brush case. And it's just a really cute little brush case. It's very long and black, and it's very streamlined, and it has this little top on it that you take off, and then of course the brushes are all inside. But I thought that was fantastic. I was surprised by that. This is just a little container for their 8-piece eye brush set, and I thought that was really, really neat. And it has kind of this silver embossment here that says Bad Habit Beauty on it, and the lid stays on really, really well, so everything is nice and secure in here. This would be great for travel, and I just thought that was a really nice touch. And it was surprising to see it in the mail because they don't have this on their website. So I thought that was cute too, that when you get this, you're like, oh, it comes in a case. That's a nice surprise. So the top just comes off like this, and you can just slide the brushes out themselves. And I'll give you guys a first look at the brushes themselves. They are just black handled with kind of this white to a smoky gray gradient on the top of them. They're all individually numbered, and there are 8 of them in this collection. So it's a full set of brushes, and I'll give you guys a close-up of the actual brush set here just so that you can see what they all look like all together. So Bad Habit is claiming that these super soft synthetic brushes are cruelty-free and ideal for maximizing application of your Bad Habit eyeshadows. They do say on here that these brushes will easily pick up and build pigment, blend out shades, define and contour the eye area, smudge out deeper colors, or define your brows. They say that these are made with acrylic handles and an aluminum ferrule. So that is the claim that Bad Habit themselves are making about these brushes in particular. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go through each one of these brushes one at a time, and we're going to talk about them and take a good up close look at them as well. So let's get started. So I figured since they were numbered, the best thing to do would be to go in numerical order. So we will start with number 1. Now number 1 is their small shader brush. Now I will say this in talking about these brushes before we start going over each one of these individual. Let's just go ahead and talk about some of the things that all of these have in common, and that's the handle and the ferrule. Now at first glance you think, well, this brush is just solid black, it's all handle, but it's not. There is a separate ferrule here on top. Now the ferrule itself is made out of aluminum, which is good. It's a very lightweight metal, but it is this black kind of spray coating on here, which I think is very sleek. I think it goes great with the handle itself. Now these handles are acrylic, so they're not wood handles. They're not like a cheap plastic handle. And the nice thing about acrylic handles is that they're incredibly durable. Another nice thing about acrylic handles is that unlike a wooden handle, these will be very resilient when it comes to washing these brushes. They're probably going to last a lot longer because they have an aluminum ferrule and an acrylic handle. So I feel like they made really good choices when it comes to those two things. Now, this brush in particular, this number 1 brush, this again is a densely packed bristle that is supposed to be used to apply pressed powder, loose pigment, or glitter to the eyelids. Now this is also going to be a brush that's one of those multi-use brushes because it's a synthetic brush head. So you're actually going to be able to use this for things like concealer underneath the eye, for cream products. You can use this to carve out your eyebrow with concealer or to shape your eyebrows with concealer. Anything that you want to use cream products for, you can use this brush for that use as well. Now for shadow or for the eyes, this is actually going to be a great brush for eyeshadow primer. So when you put primer on the lid or glitter glue on the lid before you go in with pigment or with a glitter or a metallic, putting those products down first, it's really good to use a synthetic brush for that purpose. So you could use this for that as well. So overall, I was happy with this brush. Initially looking at it, I thought, I don't know, I wasn't really sure about it because the bristles themselves look a little stiff. They just don't feel very soft, but that firmness is actually really good when it comes to working with any product that's a cream. So any kind of primer that you want to put in the eyelid, that would be perfect for it. So that is eye brush number 1. So brush number 2, now this is their fluffy crease brush. So this is going to be for diffusing color in the crease. So what you're looking for is a nice tapered head on the tip, and it actually has that. The bristles are actually cut very well on here. It is very soft as well. I'll give you guys a close-up look of it here. So again, they say that this is supposed to diffuse any harsh lines and blend out shadow in the crease perfectly. So again, this is for contouring the eye socket. So this is going to be what you use anytime you use a fluffy brush. You typically will use it right here through the crease. So anytime you really want to blow out some color, create a beautiful gradient, you reach for a fluffy blending brush. And of this collection, this is the fluffiest blending brush out of this entire collection. And I love that it's tapered so that you have this nice tapered tip so you can actually do some really fine detailing work with it as well. But this is again going to be great for smoothing out any harsh edges that you have. Anything that you really need to buff and blend out, this is going to be a nice workhorse for you. It actually does a really good job. It does blend out and diffuse color very nicely. It picks up product very nicely, and I was quite surprised with this particular brush. I actually really liked it. This is one of my favorites out of this entire collection, and that is the number 2 brush, the Fluffy Crease Brush. So number 3 is actually the small crease brush, and this is basically number 2 but in a smaller version. So a lot of times when you have a big fluffy blending brush, you want to, you know, go through the crease and you can just really blow out your shadow and create a really nice gradient. When you have a smaller crease brush, this allows you to really get in. So if you want to keep that blend a little lower and you really want to keep that right in the contour of the crease, this is great for that. So this is really, really good to just diffuse genuine crease color and really keep it in there and keep it localized to the crease only. I love using smaller blending brushes as well on the outside here for my outer V work because it keeps it nice and localized and it keeps it from like just spreading everywhere. So a smaller blending brush is always great to have in a collection. So I was really glad to see that in this collection as well. Now I'll show you guys a comparison between 2 and 3 here, because even though these both are kind of fluffy blending brushes, one is larger and one is smaller. So I want you guys to actually see the two of them side by side, and you'll notice that 3 is obviously just a little smaller. So again, this is really, really good to diffuse shadow on the eye. Even if you just want to do like a smoky eye where you're putting like a black on the lid and then you want to kind of smoke that black up into the crease, but you don't want it to go way up into the crease, that's when you would use like something like this, where you want to just really keep it kind of localized and right in a specific area. So this is actually a tool that I use quite often, so I was really glad to see this in the kit itself. And a lot of times people just have smaller eyes and they don't have a lot of eye space, so sometimes these bigger fluffy blending brushes are just too big, and a smaller crease brush is what that person would want to reach for. So I think it was really smart for them to include this particular brush in the collection. And again, this is number 3, the small crease brush. Number 4 is the pencil brush. Now this is the one brush that I had a little bit of an issue with, and I'll give you guys a close-up of it here. Now the one issue that I have with this pencil brush is that pencil brushes are supposed to be used for more precise application of shadow, to like define specific areas such as the lash line, your outer corners, smudging out that lower lash line to create like a little bit of a smoky look. This particular pencil brush just happens to be really, really firm. Now, because it's so firm, it doesn't really allow for any kind of blending to take place or even a smudging. It keeps all of the product really focused on the very tippy tip, which is a really teeny tiny small area. So what ends up happening is, where if you want to like kind of blend out that lower lash line, it doesn't really blend that lower lash line out. In other words, I would be comfortable using a liquid liner with this and actually putting maybe a liquid eyeliner right underneath here, because that tip is really, really hard and it's very firm, and you could use a liquid liner with this particular pencil brush. I'll show you guys this up close in comparison with an actual pencil brush that I have, so that you guys can see the difference in how the bristles feel, and one being a pencil brush where you could actually like smudge out a lower lash line, and then this one where you really can't do that. Now, even though I can't use this for what I would typically use a pencil brush for, which would be, you know, for inner corner highlight or for really blowing out my lower lash line, those are typically things that I would use a pencil brush for. I have found myself reaching for this and using this with liquid products that I need a firmer brush for. For example, dipping it into my eyebrow pomade and using it to really get in there and fill in my eyebrows, because it is such a firm tip. It does great for things like that. I've actually used it as a lip liner as well, again, because the point is so firm. It does a great job being really specific because you can get that tip right there on the outer edge of the lip, and it actually works really, really well for that. I've also dipped this into a liquid eyeliner and used that to line up here on the top of my lid because, again, the bristles don't give very much and it's very, very firm. So it has a very unique tip on it that's actually pretty sharp and comes to a pretty sharp point. So it's actually really fabulous to use with any kind of pomade or liquid liner or liquid lip liner because you can get really super precise with this particular brush. So even though it's firm and I wouldn't use it as a pencil brush, I definitely could find some uses for this, and I have found some uses for this that are actually really, really cool. So I'm okay with number 4 being in here, just not as a pencil brush. Number 5 is the flat crease brush. Now, this is a necessity in everybody's eye collection. So this is basically going to be your Morphe M433 or your MAC 212. It's that type of a brush. It's basically a crease brush, except it's flat and it has a tapered tip, which is fantastic. So I'll give you guys a close-up of this particular brush here. So the blender brush is going to be for all over application from the mobile lid and even up and into the crease. This is a perfect brush for outer V work or anything else that you would normally do on your eye with that flat kind of crease brush. So the use that I typically use these brushes for is for outer V work. So I'll start on the mobile lid and using that outer color on the outer portion and then bringing it up into the crease. You can do that because of the tip and the tapered tip here and it being a little fluffier. It's not like a flat brush. It has a lot of volume and dimension in it up here on top, so it makes it a really good blender. So yeah, that flat crease brush is a brush that's a staple in any eye collection. I'm really glad this one was included in, and it's actually a good one. It is very soft. The cut on it is perfect. It has a nice tapered tip and I like it. I think this is a great flat crease brush and it does great work on the eye, so I'm really glad to see this one included because it's a staple. All right, number 6 is your shader brush. Now, this is going to be your packing brush. That's what you hear a lot of people referring to shader brushes as. They either refer to them as a brush that you use to put all over color on, like that base color all over the lid, or it's that one that you use to pick up and really pack on color onto the lid. It is a great brush. I love shading brushes. They are a little bit thinner and just a little bit flatter than a flat shadow brush is. It's not really meant for blending. This is actually meant for really packing on shadow in a patting motion and doing a really good job at it. So I was really glad to see this included in the collection as well. Now I will say with this particular brush, this actually I found worked really, really well with metallics and shimmers and any kind of textured eyeshadow. So any of those kind of crushed metallics or those crumbly type metallics that you see in a lot of ABH palettes or Natasha Denona palettes, this brush works really, really well with those particular mediums. And I even like this brush a lot working with shimmers or metallics and hitting it with a little bit of setting spray and then going on and really just packing that onto the lid. This brush does a beautiful job with that, and because it has synthetic bristles, it can go through the abuse of being sprayed with setting spray and shadow and packing it on your lid. It can go through all that abuse without ruining the bristles. So I was really glad to see a packing brush put in there, but they don't call it a packing brush. This is called the number 6 shader brush. Now, number 7, they actually called a smudger brush. I'll give you guys a close-up of it here. Now, one thing I would disagree with them on is this being any kind of an effective smudger brush, because I think that the tip is just too thin for it to really be effective at any kind of smudging or smoking effect, just because It is very firm bristles, and it's just too thin. When you go underneath the eye or on top here to kind of like smudge out or smoke out your liner, you'll be able to do it, but you won't really get a good smoke out from it. And it's simply because the tip of it is just too thin. It's just too thin and too flat. So I would not recommend using this as a smudger brush. What I would recommend using this as is an inner corner highlight brush. This brush is amazing at inner corner highlight. There aren't a lot of brushes out there that have the right cut and the right shape to be that perfect inner corner highlight brush. But I feel like this is that brush that everyone's looking for when it comes to the inner corner, because when it comes to the inner corner, you need something that has kind of this curved shape to it, but you need something that's small enough to get in there, but it can't just immediately collapse, because then you don't have a lot of control over the shadow, and you need a lot of control over the shadow when you're working in that particular area. So this brush is absolutely perfect for inner corner highlight. It gives you the control, it's small enough, and it fits right in that space. And it picks up and it lays down the product absolutely beautifully. It's not so big that you end up with all of this glitter all up in here. You can keep it really, really localized. And because it's thin, you can really get in there and really get a beautiful inner corner highlight, and that is exactly what I've used this brush for. Now, another thing that I've used this brush for is for highlighting right underneath the brow bone, because it has that nice cut again across the top. It really allows you to hug that brow bone and just get really, really close and really precise with that brow bone highlight. So it really allows for you to do a really good job with that as well. And yeah, it blends it out really pretty, and it keeps it nice and tight up against that brow bone. And I love it for that use as well. A lot of people, when they highlight this brow bone, a lot of times they'll use a brush that's way too big to highlight their brow bone. Oftentimes they'll just reach for, you know, whatever brush is laying in front of them, and they'll go to highlight it, and this just takes up way too much real estate, and you end up bringing that highlight like way down in here into your crease, and then you have to go in and blend that color back up again. Whereas when you go in with a highlight like this, it really can just keep it really, really close to that eyebrow, which is fantastic. Especially if you're going in with a shimmer, you want to keep it really, really, really close, right up against that brow bone, and it just makes for a beautiful effect. And this brush is the perfect shape, the perfect density for that purpose, for right underneath the brow bone and the inner corner. I have used this brush for my inner corner highlight ever since the day we got it. I pulled it out and I was like, oh, inner corner highlight brush. There is a brush out there on the market. There's only one other one that I think is perfect for inner corner highlight, and that is the MAC 228. It is perfect for inner corner highlight, and I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but I'll show you guys side by side. So you have the MAC, obviously, is the brown one, and then you have the Bad Habit is the black one. So with the white hairs, this one is the Bad Habit. So you can see how they're cut exactly the same. They have the same shape, the same size, and yeah, so this is perfect. Perfect inner corner highlight. I'm so glad this was in the collection. I know a lot of people will look at this and be like, oh no, what is this for? Inner corner highlight. This is brush number 7, and I love it. And then last but not least is number 8, and that is their eyeliner brush. And it's just a typical eyeliner brush. I'll give you guys a close-up of it here. Now, I will say the one thing I really like about this eyeliner brush is that it is nice and firm and it's really thin, so it allows you to get really, really close to your lash line. I love that about this brush. I also love the fact that this is really, really cleaning friendly, so it's really easy to clean this particular brush as well. And after you clean it, it holds its shape. So that's a really big gripe of mine when it comes to eyeliner brushes or any kind of angled brush like this, is that the more that you wash it, the more that the point here at the top of the angle, so it slopes up and comes to a point and then drops down. And the more that you wash these brushes and use these brushes, the more that the end with the point on it will begin to fray. So you'll have these little hairs kind of sticking out and going wonky, and it really tends to kind of lose its shape over time, if you've ever noticed that with your angled brushes and the more that you wash them. However, they've managed to make these very firm and very dense, so they're really tightly packed into this ferrule. So it's like it just snaps back into shape, and I love that about any kind of angled brush, and I think that's perfect for this particular brush. Another thing this brush is really super good for is doing any work in the eyebrow. Again, because it's very dense, it's very firm, it has that really sharp angle on it, and it holds its shape quite well. So as an eyeliner brush and as an eyebrow brush to work in the eyebrow with, this is absolutely beautiful, and I really like this brush as well. And that's number 8, so that was the very last one in the collection. Alright guys, so what are my final thoughts about this particular brush collection? There are some in here that I really, really like. There are ones in here that are not my favorite, but I can definitely find uses for. But as far as an eye collection goes, I think that they were very thoughtful with each particular brush that they chose. I feel like they did try and meet a need when it comes to eye creation with makeup, and I think they did a really good job at the shapes that they chose to include in this particular collection. The only thing I feel like was missing out of this particular collection was a spoolie, so I would have liked to have seen either an individual spoolie or a spoolie stuck on the end of the angled brush, but that's just me. Now, when it comes to the actual quality of these brushes, I do feel like for their first stab at it, that it's not bad. There are certain ones in here that are really super firm and they don't have a lot of that kind of softness to it, and I would like to see those particular brushes softened up a little bit, with the exception of the angled brush. That one is supposed to be firm, so that one I would like to see stay firm. But like the pencil brush and the initial brush that I said you could use for cream product like eye primer or as a concealer brush, that brush is very, very stiff, so I'd like to see that one maybe a little softer as well. So I do feel like there are areas of opportunity in here. But when you're talking about getting an eye brush for like $4 or $5, then I think this is probably one of the better options out there. They're definitely better than like the Wet n Wild brushes. You could tell there was just a lot more thought put into the actual brush themselves. Now, one thing I will say that I am actually like a rave reviewer of is the weight of these brushes. These brushes are very heavy. They don't feel like a cheap, lightweight plastic brush. It feels very heavy in the hand. So it feels like you're working with a higher end tool, and I love that. I love when a tool that I'm using in the medium that I'm working in feels good in my hand, then I feel good about using that tool. So I love the weight of these brushes. Another thing that I really, really like is the synthetic hairs that they went with. I think they picked out a beautiful blend. I think they, the ones like the fluffy brushes, the blending brushes, those are very soft, and there isn't an issue with firmness on those at all. So all of the blending and shader brushes, I think all those are beautiful. I really, really like those brushes, and they do a beautiful job on the eye. Even the brushes in here that I do think are a little on the firm side, just because I wouldn't use like that smudger brush to smudge out my eyeshadow on my lower lash line, doesn't mean I can't find a use for that brush. So I think all of these brushes in here are useful. But as far as some of those more firmer ones being used as for the purpose that they were intended. I think there was a couple of misses there, but honestly guys, for 24 bucks, it's absolutely Erica approved. If you're looking for a very inexpensive eye brush set that's going to give you everything that you need to get the job done, this is going to do it for you. I hope that Bad Habit comes out with some face brushes. I would love to see what the face brush collection would look like foundation brushes, sponges, blush brushes. I hope all of that stuff is coming from Bad Habit. I would love to see all that stuff coming down the pipe, but I think for their first stab at it, not bad at all. I think Bad Habit will get there if we give them some time. I think for their first shot at it, I don't think they're half bad. So for 24 bucks to get an 8-piece collection, you can't beat it. Alright guys, well I hope you enjoyed this breakdown of the Bad Habit beauty brushes. Let me know what you guys think of the eye collection down in the comments below. I'd be really curious to hear your thoughts on the matter. As always, if you're new here, welcome. If you want to be part of the approved crew, just don't forget to hit the subscribe button on your way out and give me a thumbs up because that helps me out a lot too. If you're not following me on Instagram, make sure you follow me at ErikaApproved. And as always, I hope you guys are very happy and very healthy, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.